And I'm back. Had to water the plants, and then it was too late, too dark. All right, let's pick up where we were talking about the idea of make the most important thing the most important thing. In order to create a frame of reference, I had called to mind what could be argued by many the most important thing would be the ideal as set forth through many of the religious dogmas, getting into heaven. Even if people don't act that way here on earth and still ascribe to that religion. So we're taking that sentiment, the equivalent thereof, if you were a Christian, to get into heaven, taking that sentiment and we're saying that is the most important thing. That is what we must focus on. Well, what does that actually mean, or what does that actually look like? And I've put forth the notion that process, A, is a progression. Of course, these aren't just my ideas. I'm synthesizing those that I've studied. A, that is progression, and B, that it requires work. As all things require work. Sometimes they're very subtle, right? The acorn turning into the mighty oak, while the acorn holds the entirety of its potential fulfillment in that little acorn, it yet must go through the progress, the progression, and the work necessary to fulfill that. Okay? In that regard, we are the same. So, what is the work? Okay? It is not going to work, even though some of those duties may overlap. It is not your career that is the work. The work revolves around, as I mentioned, inner and outer. So, coming into alignment with natural law, as I've discussed, vis-a-vis the works of Mark Passio and his wonderful explanation of what natural law is. And of course, we can use the synonym cosmic law. It's coming into alignment with that, recognizing who and what you are as an individual, free will, sovereignty, and then taking the actions necessary to fulfill that understanding. Since much of our liberty, free will, sovereignty, etc. has been trampled upon, we must bring ourselves individually and then hopefully collectively out of that muck so that we may fulfill what it is we came here to do. Those ideas will lead you down perhaps more of the abstract rabbit holes, but somewhat simply stated, we are here to transform energy. We are here, as some would like to say, to raise our vibration, but more fundamentally to transform energy and to elevate ourselves in that process. All right, so what does that look like? For me, the outer work is the creation and growing of TROG Farms. This not only will be a place to facilitate spiritual learning, but also be a small 40-acre bastion of freedom amidst all the tyranny and chaos that's happening. A place to understand the mechanisms of nature through gardens, living in, among, with the plants and the trees. It'll act as a living example to inspire and encourage other people to replicate in their own creative process something similar. It will stand as the example of what we are here to fulfill in the physical world. That example of freedom, love, truth. And they will act as a place for others to come interact with it, begin to shake loose from themselves all the shackles, specifically mental, that bind one to the paradigms that have been so deeply entrenched. This should be a place of great fun as well, as that is a part of who and what we are. That is the outer work. I'm trying to figure out how to build driveways and plant tomatoes so they survive. So there's quite literally work involved in the physical sense that some people would say, yeah, that's a job. Which is all emanating from a place of love and a knowing desire that my property needs to exist for the sake of myself and the sake of others. Okay. What's the inner work? This arguably is even harder, as it seems to be a little bit more abstract. And for anyone that's a doer, which is probably where I fall, it feels a little more difficult to find the time to sit with oneself and not do anything. The inner work includes, among others, the idea of shadow work, introspection, psychoanalysis, healing trauma, healing physical elements, exercise, proper diet. But likely the first ideas regarding the psyche, the inner and the subconscious of individuals, that is likely the most important or at least overlooked piece. See, those are the parts of us that are so easily swiped under the mat through our constant daily distractions. Right? What's the first thing you do when you get up? What's the last thing you do before you go to bed? Are you finding and making time to sit with yourself? As uncomfortable as it is, to ask questions, to delete old programming, to rewrite new, positive, self-aligning programming. And this isn't just about achieving success within the 3D construct, within this matrix, within this overlay. And it's not just about finding only peace, although that is very important. Because with this process will come the shedding of layers and the opening of doors that lead to very disturbing realizations and understandings that must be met with head on in regards to the truth of what is transpiring both around us and within ourselves. So that is the inner work. For me, I'm following some of the mentors that I've found online that I've mentioned. Randy Green's ideas of engaging in clearing work. And you'll have to understand that her and Seth Kisboza, they have a much broader understanding of our cosmic identities. So what they speak to is going to sound far out and far-fetched. But you can still take the ideas from those that you consider to be a little more grounded here in this earthly plane through meditation, literally grounding yourself outside, and moments of reflection with and of yourself. So, somehow, amidst the preponderance of work of simply making the most important thing the most important thing, which is, again, alignment with natural and cosmic law, doing the inner and outer work so that we may transform ourselves individually to the highest state of existence, to achieve what other teachings would refer to as enlightenment, nirvana, right? Even if those are not exactly what it is we're working towards, they at the very least represent something we are familiar with that is above us in sense of a progression towards a higher state, and B, they're a proxy for what it may actually be. They align us on that trajectory. So again, for those most familiar with the Christian dogma, one would say the most important thing is to get into heaven. Take that sentiment, but apply it to our actual condition. Remove all the distortions of what religion has brainwashed us with. And after you get down to that bottom layer, that bedrock of truth, and you see what's actually transpiring, and you realize religion is nothing but a shackle, bars around the mind in and of itself, but you can take that sentiment of what we are supposed to achieve, and you can make the most important thing the most important thing.